The Dead Sea is unique in many, many aspects. Its chemistry, its evolution, its composition.
For centuries, scientists treated this sea as a dead end, too extreme to explore, too hostile to enter. Then, a research team did something that had never been done before. They went under. What they filmed on the floor of the Dead Sea has reshaped everything researchers thought they understood about what survives in impossible conditions. And the question that's been driving every expert since isn't what's down there, it's why none of it should exist. The surface reads like a map of contradictions. Water that kills fish the moment they arrive. Shores so far beneath sea level that the atmosphere above them is measurably denser than anywhere else on the planet. A lake so saturated with dissolved minerals that the human body simply cannot sink, which sounds like a party trick until you understand the chemistry making it possible. This is the Dead Sea, and the numbers alone are almost offensive. At 439.78 meters below sea level, its shoreline holds the lowest land-based elevation on Earth, roughly 44 stories underground, except the ground never rose around it. The water column beneath that surface reaches 304 meters down, making it the deepest hypersaline lake in existence. And what fills that column is barely recognizable as water. Salinity sits at 34.2%, 9.6 times the concentration of a normal ocean. The lake's density climbs so high that a liter of its brine weighs 1.24 kilograms. Your body floats whether it wants to or not. But what really makes the Dead Sea scientifically extraordinary is precisely this hostility. The same chemistry that makes the surface famous for tourism makes the seafloor essentially unreachable by conventional means. No standard diving technique, no routine equipment works here. The physics of descending into this water rewrites every assumption a diver carries down with them. And that problem is far more specific than it sounds. So the physics of this lake doesn't just make swimming strange. It makes diving a genuine engineering problem with a very specific number at its center. 40 kilograms. That is how much ballast weight each diver must strap to their body simply to break the surface and begin descending. Imagine pulling on a weight vest loaded with 4 average bowling balls, then moving with precision through pitch-black water while conducting scientific measurements. For context, combat divers in military operations typically carry 8 to 12 kilograms of ballast in open ocean. The Dead Sea demands more than triple that before a researcher even reaches the sediment. But weight is only part of what makes this environment genuinely dangerous. Swallow even a mouthful of this brine and the larynx begins to swell almost immediately. An acute physiological response to extreme ionic concentration that can close the airway within minutes. Standard regulators, which allow water to contact the mouth, become a liability. Every diver must use a full-face mask that seals the entire facial cavity from the surrounding water. One wrong seal and the mission ends before it begins, and so, potentially, does the diver. And if the mask slips, even briefly, the brine contacts the eyes. The burn is immediate. Temporary blindness follows. This was the barrier Ben Gurion University had to clear before a single frame of footage was possible. And the urgency behind solving it was rising faster than anyone had anticipated. So the engineers had solved the equipment problem. The divers could now descend. But what exactly were they racing against? Here is the number that reframes everything. The Dead Sea is not slowly fading. It is accelerating toward disappearance with a momentum that has shocked even the scientists who study it most closely. In 1930, the surface covered 1,050 square kilometers. That is roughly the size of Greater London. By 2025, it had shrunk to 605 square kilometers, a surface area nearly halved within a single human lifetime. And the pace of that loss has not held steady. It has compounded. Between 1930 and 1973, the water level fell an average of 17 centimeters each year. Measurable, concerning, but gradual enough that it could almost be explained away. Then the rate tripled. By the early 1980s, the annual drop had reached nearly 80 centimeters. By 1994 to 2001, according to USGS EROS data, it hit a full meter per year. Today, the figure stands at 1.4 meters annually. Add those decades together and the total vertical drop since the early 1970s reaches approximately 45 meters. A 15-story building now sits above where the waterline once was. What that means structurally is this. As the surface retreats, it exposes seafloor that has been submerged for centuries, altering pressure gradients and brine chemistry at depths that had remained undisturbed since long before modern science existed to observe them. The window for filming what lies down there is not merely closing. By every available measurement, it is already partway shut, which is exactly why Jonathan Lerone and Yaniv Munwes decided to go in. So Lerone and Munwes didn't design a study from a satellite feed or a shoreline sensor. They went in themselves. The descent begins like nothing in conventional diving. The moment a diver breaks the surface, the physics shift entirely. That 1.14 kg per liter density, nearly a quarter again heavier than freshwater, pushes back with a force that feels less like water and more like descending through warm, dense syrup. The 40 kilograms of ballast strapped to each diver's body are not precautionary. They are simply the minimum required to sink at all. And once you begin sinking, the visual world compresses fast. The Dead Sea is not clear in the way tropical water is clear. Dissolved minerals scatter light differently, creating a kind of amber murk that thickens with depth. Within the first 10 meters, the surface becomes a faint memory above you. Beyond 20, it disappears entirely. What the cameras captured in those early frames was not chaos. It was stillness, an almost geological quiet that felt wrong given everything happening to the lake above. The brine at depth had been undisturbed long enough to stratify into distinct layers, each with its own chemistry, its own temperature gradient, its own behavior. Divers moving through those layers described the sensation as crossing invisible thresholds, the water's character changing around them without warning. But here's the thing, that stillness was deceptive. The seafloor, when the cameras finally reached it, was not a featureless salt plain. There were structures, formations that had no business existing in a body of water this hostile, shapes that suggested active processes rather than a dead accumulation. Lerone and Munwes had descended expecting to document a barren chemical graveyard. What the footage returned was something considerably more complicated. Exactly what those structures were and what was causing them was not immediately obvious from the images alone. To understand that, the team needed to measure something that surface instruments had never been able to detect: flow. Specifically, whether anything was moving upward through that floor. And if so, how fast and from where. That measurement would change the entire picture. So the team had a structure on camera. What they needed was proof of what was driving it. It's like finding a vent in the floor of a room without knowing whether cold air, warm air, or nothing at all is pushing through it. The shape alone tells you very little. You need to measure the movement, its speed, its direction, its volume, before the structure means anything at all. That is exactly what Lerone and Munwes built a system to do. Their measurement apparatus, Purpose, designed for these conditions, was the first ever deployed directly on the Dead Sea's floor. And what it detected was not ambiguous. Freshwater was erupting upward through the hypersaline seafloor, not seeping, not trickling, but actively venting in discrete, structured columns through the salt crust above. Now, this sounds like it should have been caught before. Surface instruments had been monitoring the Dead Sea for decades. Satellites tracked its shrinking outline. Chemical sampling probes dropped from boats measured salinity gradients at various depths, and none of them registered this. The reason is almost elegant in its frustration. Freshwater springs rising through a brine column at this density get masked almost immediately. The moment a freshwater jet enters water that is 1.24 kilograms per liter, it gets enveloped, diluted at the margins, and rendered chemically invisible from above. You would need to be right there, centimeters from the source, measuring at the point of emergence, which is precisely where nobody had been until now. What the BGU system quantified was both the flow rate and the spatial organization of those springs. They were not random, they clustered. They corresponded with specific fault structures in the underlying geology, which means the Dead Sea's floor is not passive salt accumulation sitting on stable rock. It is a geologically active interface, with fracture lines actively channeling ancient freshwater upward through hundreds of meters of crust. The word ancient is doing a lot of heavy lifting there. This water has been traveling for a very long time. That active upwelling was feeding something on the surface of the floor, something that had been growing undisturbed for centuries. Around those springs, the footage revealed something that stopped researchers mid-analysis. Picture a cathedral built without architects. No quarried stone, no mortar, nothing planned. Just chemistry, pressure, and time. That is essentially what the BGU cameras captured on the seafloor. Towering mineral pillars, some reaching several meters tall, constructed grain by grain as upwelling freshwater collided with the surrounding hypersaline brine. Where two chemically opposite fluids meet, minerals precipitate. They accumulate. Over decades, then centuries, they solidify into structures that look almost deliberately engineered. But what really makes these formations extraordinary is the ecosystem clinging to them. Microbial mats, thin, layered sheets of bacteria, had colonized the surfaces around the spring craters. Living in one of Earth's most hostile environments, thriving precisely because of the fresh water seeping through. Life, it turns out, does not read the same rulebook we do. These communities had been developing undisturbed, in total darkness, under roughly 300 meters of dense brine, for what scientists estimate to be centuries. So here is the problem. The same falling water level that opened this footage to researchers is actively dismantling what they found. As the surface drops, pressure gradients at the floor shift. The boundary zone where freshwater meets brine migrates. Mineral precipitation patterns change. Structures that needed specific chemical conditions to form cannot simply survive in altered ones. And the microbial mats, those fragile biological records of centuries of isolated evolution, are responding to brine chemistry changes that nobody fully understands yet because nobody had measured them before. What was hidden for so long is now being exposed and destabilized simultaneously. The same process reshaping the seafloor is also doing something far more visible on the surface above it. And that is where the seafloor story surfaces, literally. The same freshwater dissolving salt formations 60 meters below is doing identical work directly beneath the shoreline. Picture limestone and salt layers as a slow dissolving foundation. As freshwater seeps underground from shrinking aquifer edges, the water table repositioning as the Dead Sea drops, it carves hollow voids in the salt beds above the waterline. Then, the ceiling collapses. That is a sinkhole. But the scale here is nothing like a pothole appearing on a suburban street after heavy rain. Over 6,000 sinkholes have been documented along the western shore alone. They arrive without warning, sometimes overnight, sometimes within hours. Circular craters punched into ground that looked solid the day before. Some swallow farmland. Roads have disappeared mid-stretch. Tourist resorts that operated for decades now sit abandoned behind security tape. Their car parks cratered like a small bombardment took place. One resort manager reportedly returned one morning to find his swimming pool had company. An uninvited hole had opened directly beside it. What makes this connection so significant is the mechanism, the same dissolution chemistry. The BGU footage revealed operating at the seafloor, freshwater attacking embedded salt structures, is the identical process destroying surface infrastructure. Underground freshwater lenses, pushed laterally as the lake's brine retreats, are eating cavities through coastal salt layers at a rate that surface geology surveys completely failed to anticipate, and the sinkhole field is expanding. As the waterline retreats further each year, the dissolution front migrates inland, opening new collapse zones in areas that were considered stable just a decade ago. The lake is not just disappearing from above, it is undermining the ground it leaves behind. So the lake is collapsing from below and dissolving from within. But what actually caused this crisis in the first place? The Jordan River once delivered 1.3 billion cubic meters of freshwater annually into the Dead Sea. Today, that figure sits around 100 million, a reduction exceeding 95%. What arrives now is largely agricultural runoff and treated sewage. Israel's national water carrier, completed in 1964, redirected flow from the Sea of Galilee for irrigation and drinking water. Jordan built its own diversion infrastructure on the eastern bank. Both nations extracted what the river had to give, and the Dead Sea received whatever remained. But the Jordan River is only one culprit. Along both shorelines, potash and mineral extraction operations have run for decades. Evaporation ponds covering the southern basin's surface, accelerating water loss beyond anything the natural hydrological cycle would produce alone. Industrial-scale evaporation, layered on top of agricultural diversion, compounded what was already a crisis. And then there is the proposed fix: a Red Sea. Dead Sea Canal, studied formally since a 2013 World Bank feasibility assessment, would pipe roughly 1.8 billion cubic meters of seawater annually northward, replenishing what has been lost. It has remained stalled ever since, blocked by political fractures between the very nations whose shorelines are already disappearing. The engineering solution exists, the political will, apparently, does not. So the engineering blueprint exists. The political architecture to execute it, evidently, does not. But what does that actually mean in measurable terms? The Red Sea. Dead Sea conveyance would pump approximately 1.8 billion cubic meters of seawater northward each year, a figure that sounds vast until you hold it against the arithmetic of the crisis. The Dead Sea is losing volume at a rate that demands an enormous, sustained counterforce just to stabilize the shoreline, let alone reverse it. The World Bank's 2013 feasibility assessment confirmed the project was technically achievable. A pipeline route through Jordan, descending roughly 400 meters toward the Dead Sea Basin, would generate hydroelectric power along the way, enough to offset a significant portion of desalination energy costs at the intake point near Aqaba. On paper, it is elegant. Gravity does half the work. But here is the twist. Even at full 1.8 billion cubic meter capacity, independent hydrological models suggested the inflow would stabilize the lake rather than restore it, holding the waterline near its current level, not rewinding the 45-meter drop already recorded. And that assumes industrial evaporation and agricultural diversion driving the loss are simultaneously curtailed. Without that, the canal becomes expensive maintenance of a slow disaster rather than a cure. What truly stalled the project was not engineering doubt. Jordan, Israel, and Palestinian authorities, each a stakeholder, each carrying incompatible political priorities, could not hold an agreement together through successive regional tensions. The threshold researchers worry about is not gradual decline. It is the point where internal chemistry shifts permanently, and nothing introduced from outside can reverse what the lake has already become. That footage didn't just document a sea floor, it rewrote the baseline. Before Lerone and Munwez descended, researchers could infer freshwater springs existed beneath the Dead Sea. Acoustic surveys hinted at anomalies. Chemical gradients suggested inputs. But the actual mechanics of how those springs erupt, disperse, and reshape surrounding sediment were invisible to every instrument deployed from the surface. The BGU footage made observable what had only ever been theoretical. And what it showed changes the framework for hypersaline science globally. The Dead Sea was long treated as a chemical curiosity, extreme enough to be sui generis, too hostile to inform broader ecosystem models. Now, it reads differently. A working example of seafloor geology, active beneath conditions previously assumed too dense for biological or geological dynamism. Every high salinity lake system on Earth gets recontextualized against that finding. But the footage also arrived inside a closing window. The craters, microbial mats, and mineral formations filmed during that descent were already products of centuries of accumulation. At 1.4 meters of surface loss per year, the pressure gradients sustaining those springs shift continuously. Formations built across hundreds of years are now altering faster than any expedition can revisit them. What will be permanently lost is not the idea of the Dead Sea. It's the specific, irreplaceable record of what a hypersaline seafloor becomes when left undisturbed across geological time, and we captured maybe a fraction of it before the lake itself decides the study is over. The water keeps falling. 1.4 meters every year, salt thickening on the floor, the Jordan reduced to a trickle. What emerges next depends on whether the Red Sea-Dead Sea Canal ever gets funded. That image of divers carrying 40 kilograms just to sink says everything about how strange this place still is.